Hello, sweet sisters of the sabbatical. This is your opening audio for July. Sometimes I do an opening video, sometimes I do an opening audio. I tend to do an opening audio when it feels like the message really needs to be heard. And you pay attention differently, you learn differently, I can tell you that, and you also receive information and wisdom differently when you're watching something versus just listening to something. When you shut off one of your senses, I always teach you this, but when you shut off one of your senses, the rest of them get stronger, which is why you often hear stories of people who are blind, but their hearing is, they can almost have like extrasensory hearing abilities. And so it's true. And so you can shut off your own senses. In fact, when you're really, really stressed, like when you're really in the middle of an anxiety attack, the best advice is to close your eyes. Because if you can shut off one way that you're receiving information, you will automatically be less overwhelmed. And I think that's a good tip for humans in general, especially right now, because we're on the receiving end of so much information. It's stunning to me in a way because, and this is going to be the theme for this audio. I don't know how long it will go, but I'm going to roll with it. And I love you for rolling with it. We're not resting right now. And if you have children, this will be a really easy concept for you to understand. Because when you have especially if you give birth to a child and have it from birth, or if you are an adoptive parent, if you receive that child at the moment of birth, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you started, with your children at age 5, then this isn't going to make any sense to you. Although if you have teenagers, you're probably not sleeping well either. But newborn babies, and I would say honestly dogs too, because having gone through raising newborn puppies to mature dogs a couple of times, I would say there are moments that are just as challenging. But those periods where you're not sleeping, because it's almost like, why sleep? You're just going to have to be back up in 2 hours, and you're worried about and thinking about and holding so many details that even if your body is laying in the bed, is your mind really resting? Why am I telling you this or talking about this? As a collective, we're not resting. And so there is a sense of underlying agitation, because it's almost like there isn't a free moment in the day when something of concern isn't happening. Do you know? Like, the definition of rest or the definition of peace is having moments of utter sanctity, right? Where there is really nothing worrying you. There is really nothing bothering you. That to me is rest and peace. And so because, we have sort of macro concerns and challenges and micro concerns and challenges, we're either, super pinpoint focused on some challenge in our own lives, or we're super macro focused on a bigger challenge in our world. And I think it's really important to claim sanctity. We talk about sovereignty all the time, but we don't talk about sanctity. We don't talk about sanctity. And because our planet is going through its own transformation, and we are going through our own transformations, and there's no guidebook for this, there's really no broader support for this. What's happening is we're really siloed. A lot of people think that they're the only ones who feel a certain way until they start to talk to other people, and like us in this group, right, have these conversations, and we're like, oh, I'm not the only one who feels that way. So the first message is you're not alone. The next message is you need to recognize that you do, in fact, have the power to transform and transmute events in your life and events around you energetically, right? And I think a lot of you, know that. And you come to Sabbatical for support sometimes, like, hey, can you hold me through this? Or, hey, can you see me through this? But at the end of the day, you realize that really what we are is we're a container that gathers and directs energy to support you, so that when you do your own work in your own life, that energy is magnified because you have the support and the energy of an entire container behind what you're doing. That I think is the primary gift of something like Sabbatical, right? But your ability to shift and transform and really see yourself as an agent in your life who has power to change your circumstances, or at the very least your emotions, right? If you can't change what's happening to you, you can certainly change how you perceive it and receive it, because how you perceive is how you receive, which of course means what you think about your reality is in fact your reality, right? But I want you to consider this a month for you to pursue sanctity, meaning that there is a legitimate place in your heart and in your mind and in your spirit and in your body too. Poor body just comes along for the ride. But I want there to be a legit space in your energetic field where you can go and feel complete peace, sanctity, holiness, right? Sacred ground. Those have always been the people I have admired in my life, I'll tell you, the people who have sanctity, and they tend to be spiritual people because, I don't know, spiritual people tend to be the ones who pursue a deep level of inner peace. But it's only been in the last 5 years or so where I have realized how, as one who pursues sanctity, part of what I do for people in the world is represent that. Hopefully I represent that to you. Like, what does sanctity look like? I do have sanctity, which is nuts considering, I have Sage Goddess, right? Which means I'm, energetically working with thousands of people every day. And I have a family and aging parents and friends and, loved ones and my own, challenges and concerns. But I do have sanctity. There is a place within me that cannot be touched by external influences. It's just not allowed there, which means nothing anybody says or does or thinks matters at all in that space to me. And that's kind of an interesting concept because, and here's where I think we've gotten it all wrong. Are you ready? I think as women, because the divine feminine is this floating fluid, sort of like amniotic, life-giving energy flow, but that doesn't mean that everyone in every moment should have access to every part of us. Like, you shouldn't be able to fully penetrate anybody. There should be part of people that is fundamentally off limits to you, except for you. There shouldn't necessarily be parts of you that are off limits to you. That's why we're doing shadow work, right? In OLAS, is because we're trying to make sure when you're having shadow problems is because there's still some part of you that's off limits to you. Let me say that again, because that's like a big old flippin' reality check, right? If you're having shadow problems, it's because there's some part of you that's still off limits to you. And so part of the work that I want to do is help you open access to those places, because once you've excavated it all, your personal archaeology is really important. So I want you to consider, I'm going to do it with you right now. We're going to open up a sanctified space within your energetic field right now. Only do this if you feel like you're really ready to create and hold that space, because you're also going to have to, energetically monitor it and protect it. Meaning, when you go into that sanctum, that sanctified space that I'm talking about, you're not bringing your neighbor's situation problem in there. That is not going to go in there, and you're going to have to make that choice. You really do have to decide what's in and what's out of the deepest parts of your consciousness. You really do have to decide. But some of you are letting everything in there. You don't have any boundaries and internal boundaries. And I think that personally is a dangerous thing. Because if your mood or your perception of your quality of life is truly on some level in someone else's hands, that's a problem for you and for them. That's dysfunctional. Ultimately, my mood shouldn't depend on you or what you say or what you do. I'm responsible for my mood. And how far I let your words and your actions affect me is also my choice, right? At least on an energetic level, it is. And so if you just let anyone and everyone just affect you and sway you like the wind, life's going to be really challenging. I'm teaching my kids that right now. Like, really, you're going to let, one mean comment from one mean girl dictate how you feel tonight? That doesn't seem fair, right? Does she warrant that? Is she worthy of that level of attention? You can give her, and you can acknowledge what happened. You need to feel your feelings, but 6, 8, 10 hours later, 4, 5, 6 days later, 8, 9, 10 months later, like, we let people's energy and what they do and what they say and what, and our assumptions and our expectations really have so much more influence on our lives. And if you think about it, like, even scrolling through your Facebook feed, right? How many times, because, Facebook is really this grand emotional experiment to see kind of like what, to a certain extent, like what gets you, right? What do you respond to, right? It's looking for a response. And so we go through our feed and we get agitated, or we compare ourselves to people, and we, this and that and the other. Fear of missing out, FOMO, is a relatively modern construct, because before the internet, how the hell did we know what we were missing out on? You know what I mean? Like, we didn't know that there's an event happening 2 miles away that all of our friends are going to tonight, and we didn't get invited. It's a modern thing. What you should fear that you're missing out on is peace, because the lack of it, in my opinion, leads to physical problems. When I see people at the end of their lives and they're hunched over and they're in so much physical racking pain, I often think about all of the micro decisions they made that allowed them to engage with energy in such a way that that is ultimately the result. It's something to think about. So maybe you can make the choice today, yeah? I mean, we're very early into July, that you are going to engage sanctity in your life. Not just sovereignty, meaning you stand in your power, but sanctity, you stand in your peace. And that peace isn't up for auction, okay? It's not going to the highest bidder. And you can consciously say to yourself, as you're listening to something or as you're seeing something, you can consciously say to yourself, this isn't welcome in my peace. This isn't welcome. I'm going to allow myself to look at it right now or think about it right now, and then I am setting it down. And you can imagine your sanctity. I'll give you a shape. Imagine it as a hexagon, okay? Just for the sake of giving you a shape to focus on. Imagine your sanctity as a hexagon. As I always think about the human energetic field in terms of sacred geometry, right? When something is upsetting you, I want you to imagine, we're going to do it right now, stepping into that hexagon. Make it a gold hexagon so that you actually can see yourself crossing the line, stepping into it. And I want you to consciously move anything outside of that hexagon that's bothering you. Just like set it outside. Your kid's bothering you, did something yesterday that upset you, set that outside. What your mom said 8 years ago, let's put that outside. I think it's time. What happened at the grocery store yesterday, the person that cut you off in the car, that your health concern that's been bothering you and you're worried about it in the back of your mind. Set all that stuff outside the hexagon. And now I want you to notice what comes to mind. If you almost like a child, if I take all your sad toys away, imagine if I was like, nope, give me it. It's a sad toy, I take it. If it's an anxious toy, I take it. If it's an angry toy, I take it. Imagine if I took all your low vibe toys away. What would you play with? And maybe for a minute you would sit and do nothing, right? Like, what do kids do when you take all their toys away? They sit there and go, well, what do I do now? But you'd get creative real quick, right? I want you to imagine sitting right now in that beautiful golden hexagon of light. Imagine that the gold isn't just around the edges, but that there's a stream of golden light. And it's coming from underneath you, and it's bubbling up within you, and it's flowing out the top of your head. And when you extend your arms, you're able to hold that golden light in both of your hands, and you're bringing it back to center, and you place your hands over your heart and you pour that golden light into your heart space. And then from your heart, imagine your heart pumping that golden light through all of your veins and all of your arteries. So it's going into your brain, it's going into your arms, stretching out through your fingers, it's going through your entire digestive system. That golden light is purifying, detoxifying, cleansing, healing, promoting health and well-being and happiness. Down through your legs to your knees, all your joints are just being bathed right now in this magical golden light that is infused. Think of it like liquid gold. It's just infused with every healing energy, every loving energy, every generative energy, every conscious energy, every piece of wisdom from all of your ancestors and everything they want you to know and trust. All of the loving kindness of the humans on this planet who are working together to raise the consciousness. That's all coursing through your veins right now. Oh, and it feels really good, doesn't it? Imagine if you could then transmit this liquid light to anything you touched. So your crystals would be infused with it, touching your own skin with it. Phone would be infused with it, your computer would be infused with it, whatever you are making, your art would be infused with it, the food that you cook would be infused with it. Imagine digesting food that would be created in this space. Imagine painting a big golden hexagon around your kitchen, or making a big golden hexagonal kitchen where you go and you cook this manna, this heavenly inspired food. I dream big dreams sometimes, and they're not for me. I don't want a golden kitchen. I don't need to do that, but somebody does. I actually think that we often ideate for other people. And so when ideas come to me, an inspiration that I know isn't mine, but it's just a fucking awesome idea, what I do is say, okay, Great Spirit, that's not for me, but please send that to whoever needs that right now. Let them receive that inspiration as a gift from me with wisdom from you. Amen, aho, and so it is. And just imagining that, you know, somebody one day is going to open a restaurant called the Golden Hex. It's going to be all this heavenly food. Call it food from heaven. Anyway, my point to you is, do you really want those toys that are sitting outside the hexagon right now? Or are you just really happy to let that stuff sit there for a minute? Because it just feels so good to do something else. And it just feels so proactive to be active and to recognize. And this will be hard for some of you to hear, because I can tell from your posts that you don't fully believe this yet. But that's probably why you're here with me, is that you need to learn it. Every time you tell the story of your trauma again, you revive it. It's like putting the paddles on and saying clear and just bringing it back from the dead. And because we're a society that's really been conditioned into a model of talk therapy, we think that the more that we talk about something, the more that we're going to heal. But in the medicine traditions, in shamanism, it's actually the opposite. Every time you talk about it, because words spoken out loud are the most powerful. Second to that is words written. Third is words thought, okay? But words spoken out loud is a thought that's articulated in the universe and creates a vibration, because sound is vibrational, and vibration is what manifests reality. So when you say it, that shit's happening. You need to tell a new story, and then revive it, and revive it, and revive it, and revive it. And that new story needs to be about what is actually happening to you. And more importantly, what do you want to happen to you? Do you want to be successful? Do you want to be happy? Do you want to experience peace and sanctity? Because that requires you to become really consciously responsible of what you're saying and what you're doing in every moment. And becoming fully aware of your own personal archaeology so that aren't still skeletons hanging around in your closet. If this is striking a chord with you, by the way, and you haven't signed up for Of Light and Shadow, we're still really early in that journey, and I want to encourage you to join us. And if it sounds like someone else in your life, you're like, that's not really me, but gosh, that's my sister, you might want to mention it to her. And then our work here in Sabbatical, which is so complementary, is about raising energy, directing energy, becoming conscious of our thoughts and our processes, and engaging ritual to support the vibration you do want to experience, to support the story that you do want to revive. All of that work happens in this container. Clearing out in the other container to be able to manifest and create new energy streams. And that's why we do a different ritual every month, right? It was such a sweet experience this year to watch you engage in these rituals from all over the world, to engage the energy streams of beauty, and to engage the energy streams of prosperity, and to engage the energy streams of joy, and to engage them on a level that doesn't involve your mind. It's not about you understanding it, right? On a conscious level. It is. I try to satisfy that need in you too, right? The professor in me wants you to have all of the technical information, but there's a lot of other layers and levels of conversation that happen here, including words that I don't speak, right? Code that gets transmitted. And that's been what this container has always been, is really the transmission of a lot of wisdom and information that happens on a lot of different levels. And that's why Sabbatical is really cool. It can kind of meet you where you are, because those of you who are more experienced in your practice find that the energy of the Course does meet you there, right? Pushes you, nudges you, the synchronicities that happen. That's also part of the experience of Sabbatical. Sometimes people realize it when they take a break. They come back and they go, whoa, like the number of synchronicities that happens when I'm there is different than when I'm not. And that's part of the intention of the space too, is that there's more magic available to you. It's more of an open channel. And so it takes me and it takes all of us. It's a collective effort to create that channel, but we do it with intention and with love. And I think it's, even after all these years, because Sabbatical's, turning 7, I think it's still one of the most unique spaces on Facebook, because in almost every other group I've ever seen or been in, including my own, right, people can be really vicious with each other. And here here we're practicing, right, what it means to be conscious and work in 5D, and not project our shit all over other people, and not blame other people for our problems, and not just constantly judge people, but to be in a space of like, what is unity consciousness? And even in cases where you don't see something where you don't agree or it doesn't resonate with you, it's sort of like, wow, but I still can really hold space for loving that person. And seeing sort of the person behind the person, the words behind the words, the energy behind the energy, right? Sanctity. Today, Great Spirit, my prayer is that this container, that the magical sabbatical itself becomes a golden hexagon for everyone who's here, right? Sort of like, you think about golden hexagon, and isn't it funny? It's sort of like immediately bees and beeswax and all of that comes to mind. And it fits so beautifully too with our, our hive ethos here, that we all kind of see each other in that way. So thank you for being in my hive, and thank you for living a life that leads by example. And when you need to step into that golden hexagon, it is there for you. It is there for you. All the time. You could jump in right now and jump back out. It is like raising children. You do have to go out in the world and tussle, you know what I mean? And it's a big, unpredictable world. But you don't belong to that world. You're in it, but you're not of it. You're a light being. Don't let it bring you down. Always remember who you are. And when people try to bring you down, remember that hurt people. And so when someone's trying to bring you down or talk badly about you or hurt your feelings or undermine you in any way, it really is a sad moment where they are. And if you can hold some space of compassion for that, I promise you, and I've always said this too, like for me with Sage Goddess and stuff, right? Sometimes people will troll things or be mean, and it's like, I know for sure if I could peek into that person's life, they're not happy. And I am pretty happy. So I look and I say, you know what? God bless them. I hope that something really good comes so that they find that the world is a blessed place to be. And then they develop more of an attitude of gratitude, which leads to compassion, which could let them love me too. But, it's like 10 steps to that. All right. Gorgeous Goddess Sisters of the Sabbatical, I wish you every blessing. We have a lot of fun things ahead. The Sage Goddess anniversary is on July 25th. And so we're going to be celebrating and doing some fun things. And there's so much ahead, actually. And so if you're enjoying a beautiful summer holiday time with your family, I wish you blessed moments of sacred connection. And just want you to know that we are always here for you. This container is so important to me personally and to all of us at Sage Goddess. So we honor you, we see you, and we thank you for being here. Aho, and on we go.